The Republic of Somaliland has a government, passports, a flag, and an army. It has territory here on the Horn of Africa, and like almost all African countries, it was once a colony of a European power. But Somaliland is not a country, not technically. To the international community, it's a naughty, breakaway part of Somalia. So then, what gives? Somaliland is separate, relatively stable, and it acts like it's sovereign. So how did it get to exist, and why does it still not count as a country? The self-proclaimed Republic of Somaliland emerged in 1991 as the state of Somalia was in the process of disintegrating, something that started in the early 1980s. Led primarily by the Somali national movement of the Isaaq Somali clan family, the Republic of Somaliland claims sovereignty over the colonial borders of the protectorate of British Somaliland. The British protectorate had been, very briefly, recognised as independent in 1960 until it united with Italian Somalia that year to form the Somali state, which collapsed 30 years later. According to the government in Hargeisa, today's Somaliland is the continuation of that legitimate pre-union entity. According to everyone else, you can't just walk out of a legal country, even if it barely functions. From the very start of the Somali Union in 1960, the relationship between its two constituent parts had been rocky. Post-independence political power was centralized in the capital, Mogadishu, far to the south. Almost as soon as they agreed to the merger, northern Somali, from the clans of the lands of the old British protectorate, principally represented by the Isaaq, felt overlooked and exploited, particularly because they were used to being left alone, living in a possession which Britain was always extremely disinterested in. For several centuries, the Somali clans of today's Somaliland had nominally been ruled by various foreign empires. The Ottomans, the Egyptians, and then the British had all had a go. But in practice, the Somali remained largely autonomous. Unless you had a strong need for goats or camels, there's not much to exploit across the arid steppe and mountains covering most of Somaliland, the rest of Somalia, and the greater Somali homeland, which includes parts of modern Kenya, Djibouti, and Ethiopia. The exceptions were spots along the coast, where the empires flew their flags in small merchant towns and accepted lip service from the inland herders who made up the bulk of the Somali population. Nomadic clans, the foundations of the Somali social order, along with Sunni Islam, only had as much to do with each other as they wanted, intermarrying in good times and fighting in bad. The clans aren't like noble houses. Ancestry assigned everyone to a clan. Clans had sub-clans and linked up as greater clan families. Occasionally, sultans would lead loose clan confederations, but for the most part, the Somali relied on their imperial benefactors for interactions with the outside world. The main Isaaq clans and their neighbours petitioned Britain for a protection agreement in 1884. For the Somalilanders, the UK was an attractive overlord to choose when compared with the competition. The Ethiopian Empire under Menelik II was expanding and was well on its way towards conquering swathes of the Somali steppe, bringing taxes, settlers, and Christianity along with it. The alternative Europeans weren't much better. France was a pariah in the Muslim world, in large part for its treatment of the Algerians, and was known for being a meddlesome colonial force. Italy was more of an unknown quantity for the Somali for the time being, and the clans of Somaliland didn't necessarily like the British especially, but they enjoyed trade relations with Aden colony in South Arabia, and British India won some favour from Muslims around the world for facilitating Hajj pilgrimages. London had no interest in spending resources trying to change the Somali, with the protectorate government banning Christian missionaries from proselytizing, for example, and it was also thought unwise to directly tax the clans. In fact, British Somaliland was virtually an economically irrelevant imperial possession. The main reason to keep it was to keep France and Italy out. A third of Somaliland was signed over to Menelik in 1897, and Britain nearly withdrew from the Horn of Africa completely after a rebellion against Ethiopia spread towards British-protected clans around the turn of the century. Led by Syed Mohammed ibn Abdallah ibn Hassan, popularly known as the Mad Mullah among British officials, the dervish movement fought to expel the hated Ethiopians and other foreigners from Greater Somalia. Only wide-scale destruction forced Britain to pay attention and eventually to establish a small colonial garrison. By around Abdallah Hassan's death in 1920, solid borders were being agreed with Ethiopia, France, and Italy. World War II briefly shook things up, but they're still largely the lines on the map today, with the notable dispute being Somaliland. Both the British Protectorate and the Italian Trust Territory of Somalia were decolonized in 1960, and the governments of both territories promptly approved of unifying them. Already by 1961, some in Somaliland began to regret ceding power to the new capital. Then, less than a decade into Somali independence and union, a coup in 1969 saw General Siad Barre take over in Mogadishu. For the next 20-odd years, his backers from southern Somali clans dominated Somalia's government. The Barre regime's brutality in maintaining its power, and particularly its war on the Isaaq clan, served as the catalyst for the former protectorate in the north declaring its own independence after rebel groups ousted him, and Somalia collapsed in 1991. However, as Somaliland agreed to join Somalia in 1960, no country accepts their retroactive claim to the Imperial-era border, and key to being a country is recognition by other countries that you're really a real country. So Somaliland isn't. Further complicating its assertion to independence is a decades-long border dispute with another Somali faction, Puntland. The old protectorate overlaps with Puntland's associated clan territories, and the line between the two has always been fuzzy. Perhaps the final nails in the coffin for Somaliland's international acceptance are warnings from the UN and the African Union that recognizing one separatist state could easily start a firestorm of conflicts across post-colonial Africa. Speaking of, before being forced to decolonize, France spent 130 years trying to bend Algeria to its will. A much more hands-on colony than Britain in Somaliland. Find out more about empire in Africa in the video on French conquest and Algerian resistance to the left. Or see how British power was challenged closer to home in the Irish War of Independence. Hopefully, I'll see you there. And thanks for watching Look Back History.